livery.
Messenger not sighted. What could you be? An alien artifact? A ring of life? Oh, you're a box. Very handsome. Commanding. Where did you come from? Now, if my measurements are correct,
let's see what we got.
What is this?
Hey, Portal, call Lauren. Oh. Wait, it's moving.
And if I go over here, camera follows me, doesn't it?
You can see up here, right?
Yeah.
Run past it like quick and God help us.
rinse it in the sink. Now, you have a knife?
Whoa!
Chiaroscuro developed in the Renaissance.
Fascinating.
16. Then. Now up. Cramp.
Double time.
I'm getting a cramp.
You can make a mark on the world, you know.
Thanks,
You
Dad.
got a lot of talent.
Inhale.
Hey, Casey. It's nice to see you today.
Great Scott! This could destroy the space-time continuum. I don't belong here. My friend, where we're going, we don't need. Actually, I have no idea what we'll need.
The Prince of Wales driving himself in his own car. It's an Aston Martin cheese. He's owned it back in 1970 when it was a very nice 21st birthday present.
The Duchess of Cornwall.
Flying red British-built Hawk T1 jets. Formation led by Red 1. Squadron leader Tom Bolt. Who is going to calm the raging bull? And now the flag's raised by Abel Rate Stanton from the Royal Navy.
Finally, Max hands over the baton. 1994 and 1998 Commonwealth Games. Please welcome Birmingham's own Denise Lewis.
Denise
Denise Lewis passes the baton to Dame Louise Martin, President of the Commonwealth Games Federation.
Some people just don't know what to wish for.
This is too surreal. I mean, this office, the 13th floor of a building that has no 13th floor.
This is the afterlife. And you made a deal with the guys, sealed in blood, who knew everything about you, including what you were going to say before you said it. Now, who do you think that guy might be? And do you think it's a good idea to piss him off?
I'm terminal, 6 months to live. Only, I'm not going out in a hospital.
Everything I want in the I swallow passion's bitter pill. 1,000 bugs adorn my grill. I drive until I can't see you no more. I jump the bridge and clear the gap. I spill my soda in my lap. And I can hear right now just what you say.
For 250 years after people, St. Louis's gateway arch has worn its stainless steel skin as armor against the dragon's breath of corrosion. But stainless steel isn't invincible.
It doesn't last forever. The mechanism for final failure will probably be around the center of the arch at the top. That's its thinnest point.
The thinnest points are the two sections that form the so-called keystone. They're steel triangles, 17 feet long by 18 feet high. They were the last pieces to be installed. The keystone is so critical to the structure's stability that until it was inserted, a temporary stabilizing truss had to be used to keep the two legs from collapsing. Before the pieces were lifted into place on October 28, 1965, a Roman Catholic priest and a rabbi blessed the keystone. Now the prayers of man are of little help. The keystone buckles and drops from the structure.
The two legs of the arch would not be able to stand on their own. and they would fall down to the ground.
And so we took a real close look at this thing to see what is connected to this arch. And it's fascinating because Titus himself is what we call one of the sons of Jupiter, who is the resurrected Saturn. This is a group of Roman emperors that believe they're descended from the Titans. And I just wanted to go over what his origin of his name is. His name derives from the mythical Titans, the giant gods of the Greeks and Romans. And what was really interesting about Titus, other than he's associated with the Titans, is the noun, is a rare form of Tisus, meaning penalty, retribution, or vengeance. So we have a Roman emperor who's a son of Jupiter, who is the resurrected Saturn. We've covered the resurrected Saturn and things like that before, but we have a man's name that is associated with the Titans, destroying the Temple of Jerusalem, which is at that time, in the Old Testament time, in the Jewish culture, was the temple of God, where God resided. So we have a man named after the Titans, who are the mythological gods of the pre-flood that ruled in the age of Saturn, sitting here destroying the temple of God, which was the God that destroyed them with the flood. That's why this becomes really fascinating to us now.
Merci beaucoup, monsieur, dame. S'il vous plaît. Merci beaucoup. C'est tout ce que je peux faire pour aider nos familles.
Macron's media abstinence is over. As we know, the French president is often compared to Jupiter, the Roman god, in part for his kind of distance from journalists and from the people. Well, now he has descended from Mount Olympus, breaking the silence.
Napoleon, Alexander the Great, Donald Trump, we're all cut from the same cloth.
When you look at this thing, it starts talking about the apotheosis of Titus. And this is where we get into our interesting Genesis 3:5 connection, where you shall be as gods, the original lie in the Garden of Eden, godhood, man becoming God, the original promise of the serpent. Here it is in the Arch of Titus, because it represents, they depict the apotheosis of Titus becoming a god by his brother Domitian, who erected it after the destruction of the temple. It is a declaration by the Titans against God that you destroyed us, we are going to destroy you. What's fascinating, this happened during the era after Jesus was crucified, where this building, this temple, used to be a physical residence of God's house in the Old Testament tradition. But Christ defeating the grave, shedding his blood, resurrecting and going to heaven and sitting at the right hand of God, brought about the temple transition from a structure into the followers of Christ, who became the temples themselves. And the Holy Spirit resides in us. This absolutely just rocks my world because we're looking at the age of Saturn striking at the post-flood era of the Arch of Titus. And we're looking at the resurrection of the rebellion, the Emperor of Vengeance, avenging the Titans, and the destruction of the deluge. Why are we seeing these arches go up now? We are seeing these arches go up because we're trying to do a repeat of history, where the focus was destroying God and his temple and his people in the land that he said was his land. Now it's the New World Order is trying to do the same thing, but this time these arches are being erected again as another statement saying that we will destroy Christianity from the face of the earth, because Christians are the residents of the Holy Spirit and their temples. So we want to go back to the age of Saturn, which is pre-flood, and they are declaring this as the Golden Age. And this is my kind of roundabout way of syncing up the importance of this. And we're going to have Chris discuss what's in this arch and also how this translates to some of these modern rituals. So Chris, go ahead and talk about what's in this arch.
When Titus conquered the Jews and destroyed the temple, he sacrificed to Jupiter at that time because these people believe that they are the descendants of Jupiter. The top of the arch of Titus is showing Titus carried into heaven on the wings of an eagle. We know that the eagle represents Jupiter. The arch that was put in Washington, you can see the Twin Towers right through the arch. And this is why we started looking into all of this. And there's so many connections to this, but we can only go through some of them which tie to the sun god. We have a lot of movies that represent the number 8, like Star Trek 8, Fast and Furious 8, Wonder Woman with the 8-pointed star of Anu on her head. And so we have all of this symbolism all around us in children's cartoons, even going through portals. The cartoons are talking about supercomputers and being your own gods, and these things are just bombarding us in this world right now with this sun worship and putting this predictive programming in everyone's heads as they build these arches and continue to put the symbolism up.
Yes, and it's a definite statement. It's a statement that what they did with the first temple, which was the destruction of supposedly God and his people, and they're wiping them from the face of the earth and dispersing them in diaspora around the world, that's what they intend to do again. Again, it's the same Genesis 3:5 rebellion of you shall be as gods. It is the rebellion against God, and that man in this humanistic world that we live in is going to make himself God. So therefore, the Freemasons have the apotheosis of Washington in the Capitol building in Washington, D.C., of Washington becoming God, which is the same as Titus becoming God in the apotheosis. So man being God and being God, they keep repeating this. What do they want to do these days with Kurzweil, transhumanism, and all these other things? They want to make man God. Michio Kaku saying that, nanobots can replace the synaptic material of the brain until you just have a schematic brain. And in a future show, we'll get really heavy duty into the brain chips of IBM and other things of the hive mind that we have been researching for so long. But this show is specifically just to show the in plain sight rebellion of modern man through the United Nations and all these global leaders, that they are doing the same thing the Titus Arch resents. They are going to rebel, declare themselves God, and we have no need of a God because we are our own gods. That really came home for me when I looked at this event that I became aware of off of watching a Fox News presentation called the Invictus Games. Where do we get the name Invictus from, Chris?
From the sun god, Sol Invictus.
And when is that birthday, Sol Invictus, celebrated?
December 25th.
So here we got the sun worshipers, and everybody's heard for a long time that, we've been doing the worshipers of the moon versus the worshipers of the sun. We discussed CERN being over the temple of the sun with the Apollyon, and in Jerusalem and things with the temples of the moon. There's those who worship the sun, those who worship the moon, and a lot of this stuff goes back to sun worship. Invictus Games became very interesting to me because I wasn't really aware of it. I just found that this one was connected to the royal family through Prince Harry. And it's a very interesting game. It's basically to support wounded warriors and give them their own athletic events and build community and support around wounded soldiers coming back home and their value and all those things, which is fine. What did you think the first time that you looked at this show, Chris?
It really bothered me for a few things. I mean, we know that Prince Harry claims that he is an inheritor of the royalties, of the royal family, and I do believe, in my opinion, that's the bloodline of Cain. But it really bothered me because it says, I am. Jesus is I am. He is the light of the world. Jesus is the great I am. And so when I keep seeing this, I'm the master of my fate, I'm the captain of my soul, it really bothered me because Jesus should be the captain of everybody's soul, not yourself. So when I saw I am, I thought of the apotheosis that you're talking about. I thought about be as your own gods. And so this is just a message that the elite are bringing out on a big scale, because Obama's husband, Michelle, is promoting this with Prince Harry, and I believe that the games are supposed to be in May. Where are they going to be at in May, Tim?
The Invictus Games are being held in Orlando, Florida, May 8th through, I think, the 12th. The I Am declaration is first made in the Bible by God when he's discussing with Moses as he's sending him to the children of Israel. Who should they say sent Moses to them? And he says there in Exodus 3:14, he says, God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, I am has sent me to you. So again, it's very clear that I am is used as the creation God who created everything, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. The Father, I am, sent Moses. And here we got the Invictus Games using I am in an interesting shape also. How is the Invictus logo put together?
Well, you can see in the video on Fox News that Prince Harry, he's holding up a pyramid, and it has a black flag in it that says Invictus Games. Well, that kind of matches the capstone, because the star of Anu, that is the 8-pointed star, it's together with Venus. This star represents the ogdoad, and the ogdoad represents the capstone. And this represents Jupiter, Amon, and it's really interesting because of the year of Jubilees that the Pope called out of nowhere. So the Pope has this Jubilees year, which the Bennu bird is Thoth and represents the capstone. So the Bennu bird represents the ogdoad and the capstone. So all of this goes together with predictive programming that we're seeing. And just like the Sleepy Hollow show, it had the capstone on top of a fireplace, and then you have the 13 stars on the flag. You have the Star of Solomon and the star that the Pope wears on his clothing. And then there is the star Sirius that represents this 8-pointed star and the black sun. Also in that picture that we're seeing with the pyramid on the fireplace in this Sleepy Hollow, you see the harp of Apollo. We know Madonna played that harp on stage as she was dressed as the Baphomet. And then in the same picture, Sleepy Hollow, there is also the star of Sirius on the back of this guy's head.
Also, the Invictus Games, the logo itself, the I Am, is in yellow, which is symbolic of the sun god, but it's also structured within a pyramid. When you see the actual flag, the blackness of the flag is symbolic of also the black sun. So it's like, I am the black sun god, almost. It's like saying that what the Nazis worshipped was the black sun. And so here we got this capstone being prominently displayed. This is what we call being hidden in plain sight in my book. This is what you're looking at. We're looking at ritual without the involvement of the majority of the people there. This is clearly messaging going on. Again, I'm not trying to denigrate the event or the people who are wounded. I just can't sit by and not point out this is just so strange, because it says I am unconquered basically in yellow. And who's unconquered? The black sun god is unconquered. Well, Lucifer is unconquered, you know.
Yeah, and even in text it says that their sun god, Jupiter, is the unconquered sun. And doesn't the car say unconquered on it that they drive up on?
Yes, it says unconquered, and it has a logo on the front of it. It's a cat with the red sun behind it. And the Bible talks always about lions, about the lion going around seeing who he can devour, other than the Lion of Judah, which is Jesus. The symbolism just gets ridiculous to me. So I'm watching the Invictus Games, and they're out front of Buckingham Palace with Prince Harry. Again, it has nothing to do with the participants. I'm just looking at the ritual. This just caught me as a very strange event when they have this car drive up right here with the trident on there. The I am is a trident. If you look at it, there's 3 points there. I am unconquered with the trident. And here comes one of the gals with a red outfit. And we know the woman who wears red in the Bible. So the woman in red's riding the beast is my interpretation here. Here we come with the capstone with the I am trident there and the black sun coming down some portal. And I think Anthony and Chris and I have talked about coming down a portal, right? Coming down, coming through something. The capstone is coming through something.
The door of Jubilees.
Yeah, the door of Jubilees. Why else do this? Why else ride up in a vehicle and bring the capstone through with a woman in red? The I am there also represents the eye of Lucifer in the capstone on the dollar bill that you're seeing there. Now, again, I'm not denigrating these men that are involved in it or the commentator, the woman in the red. I'm saying the symbolism of what you're watching. The sun color of the yellow. And they come through the gates, right? There's our gates. They came through the gates.
The gates of Ishtar.
Yeah, it makes me think of CERN. That's what it makes me think of. So it comes out of the portal. It's just such a strange event when I was just witnessing it. I'm just going, this is just so strange. And then they set this thing down here, and it's the capstone. That's about it for this narration. I'm just saying it just looks really ridiculous having Prince Harry involved with this, knowing what the royals are connected to the beast system. And just to see this sitting there like that is a little much for me to take in.
And, you know, we pray for our country and our men and women that fight, you know, for our country. And we love them and we pray for them. So this has nothing to do with them or the soldiers that have been wounded. Of course, this, like Tim says, has everything to do with the
symbolism,
with the ritual. Prince Harry does not believe in Jesus Christ, let me tell you. And so if you have someone representing this that doesn't believe in Jesus Christ, Jesus knows who are his and who isn't. I don't think that God discounts those people that belong to him just because Prince Harry doesn't and he's doing his thing, because God knows everybody's heart.
And then what we're looking at is, honestly, this was to show you a ritual in plain sight as it's happening today, right on your TV, right in front of you, involving the messaging of the eye and the capstone is coming through the portal soon to a land near you as the unconquered Sol Invictus, you know. And this connects with the apotheosis again, because all these folks who support it believe they're going to be gods, as we said in Genesis 3:5.
There's a lot of predictive programming, and like I said, it ties to the Babylonian sun wheel, and the 8 gods that they worship. These are the order of the seraphim.
It's no coincidence that 8 is the number for this deja vu time loop that this man allegedly experienced. It's also no coincidence that an hourglass is shaped like an 8. 8 represents the construct of time. That's why 8 is another variation of the Ouroboros, the snake eating itself, which has everything to do with time. And this suspicious story, as I saw it, brought to mind the film Source Code, which features a plot about a deja vu time loop computer program called the Source Code, where a man's consciousness is sent back in time to relive the final 8 minutes, the last 8 minutes in someone else's body, attempting to create an alternate timeline of reality. So we have a time loop that is set to 8 minutes, the final 8 minutes of someone's existence. When you realize the occult significance of 8 and its relation to time, it all begins to make sense. Even some of the film's promo art featured an 8 as the hourglass, because this is exactly what the number 8 is. So if 8 represents a reality, a construct of time, what happens when there are 2 8s, double 8, 88? Well, we now have the convergence of 2 realities, 2 worlds colliding. When worlds collide, therefore 88 represents a dimensional rip in space-time, the opening of a portal. This is of course why the Back to the Future DeLorean must go 88 in order to create the tear in the fabric. This is why in another 80s film called Buckaroo Banzai Across the 8th Dimension features a time travel vehicle called the HB-88. I stumbled upon an episode of the old TV series called Goosebumps, which is based on the extremely popular and controversial Goosebumps book series of children's fiction horror. And these books were shockingly popular, and I of course read them myself. As it turns out, if you do a little research on Goosebumps and its dark history, you'll realize why it was so popular. In the episode called The Cuckoo Clock of Doom, a child travels back in time by turning the head of the cuckoo backwards. In attempting to get back to his original timeline, he accidentally breaks the number 88 off the clock. This year represented the year his younger sister was born, therefore erasing her from existence. Again, you will always see the number 8 playing a critical role in anything relating to time or time travel. This is why in the time travel film Donnie Darko, it takes place in 1988.
Time's going backwards!
Imagination. I think we got a writer on our hands. That'd make a great science fiction story, son. Time going backwards.
Another example is the very esoteric film Cabin in the Woods. We see a scene where someone attempts to escape an enclosed prison matrix reality that has been created for them and have been forced to be trapped in order to be ritually sacrificed to ancient gods called the Ancient Ones. In the scene, he tries to escape by accelerating his bike to reach the other side of the cliff, but dies upon colliding with the outer hexagonal grid shell that keeps them trapped, and sparks fly. This is why the number predominantly featured on his bike is 88. We see the collision of 88.
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious.
Control, FedEx 88, broadcasting in the blind. How do you read? Tahiti Control, FedEx 88, broadcasting in the blind. Chuck.
Like an airplane.
Well, I'll wait.
When this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious.
And where might our beloved St. Louis, Missouri arch point to? Well, none other than a very peculiar place that we have been talking about extensively here on Enter the Stars. And that would be in none other than the very heart of Easter Island. Yet when I do a search on the St. Louis Arch and Easter Island, it seems as though nobody else has made this discovery in the history since the St. Louis Arch. Might this website for Google Maps point us to the direction where we might find more clues? Rifts, major nexus points, which is what we've been saying all along. St. Louis Arch falls directly on one of these nexus points, as Google Earth calls it, as well as Easter Island, the two pointing towards one another. Take care and be safe, you guys.
When one thinks about adventure, they think of places like Egypt and the pyramids shrouded in mystery. And while it is fascinating, there's another place that's fascinating and full of mystery all its own. Join us as we have a look at some of the most awesome facts about Easter Island. The statues. Easter Island is also known by its native name Rapa Nui, and is most famously known for the many large statues that reside on its island. These statues are known as the Moai and are believed to have been carved somewhere between 1250 CE and 1500 CE. While at first it appears that the statues only consist of giant heads, archaeologists have dug deeper down and actually discovered their bodies. These statues are incredibly tall, with the tallest one being 33 feet and weighing in at a staggering 82 tons. All of the statues feature huge heads that measure about 3/8 of the total size, and the heads have very easily recognizable facial features, with elongated noses, defined chins, rectangular ears, and deepened eye slits. The noses also have curls that resemble fishhooks and heavy brows. And out of the 887 that are known, there are 834 that are made from volcanic ash that's been compressed called tuff, and 17 were made from scoria, which is a fragile rock, 22 from trachyte, and 13 from basalt. Each statue features an average height of 13.1 feet, weighing somewhere around 12.5 tons.
A new world order for the 21st century.
U.S. troops died in Iran and Afghanistan. 6,000 as of today, 923. Not roughly 6,900, 923. Because every one of these fallen angels left behind a family.
Now look on a military clock, 9/11. Okay, if you go around again, the next event will be on 9, go around to the 11, but on a military clock, it's 2300 hours. So 9/11 was a major event. The next event will happen. I have no idea the year. I don't know that time, but I know that 9/23 is the next go-around.
Gaius Octavius, better known as Augustus Caesar, was born into nobility on September 23rd, 63 BC, although he never recognized the title of emperor. Augustus Caesar was the first of the ruling Julio-Claudian dynasty to reign in Rome. Before Augustus's centralization of power, Rome was ruled by a series of suffects, but Augustus changed that entire system, becoming the sole ruler. His family, the Julians, gave birth to some of the greatest tyrants the world had ever seen, including the merciless Caligula and the mentally insane Nero. Members of the Julio-Claudian dynasty believed themselves to be descendants of another race from the Dawn Star, also known as the Venus. Members of this dynasty were so convinced that they descended from this otherworldly race that they would actually dress up as the goddess Venus. Even the ruthless Caligula would cross-dress and put on women's garbs that made him look like a goddess. But it all started with Caesar Augustus, born on September 23rd, 63 BC, who would adopt the title Divi Filius, which means Son of God.
Ladies and gentlemen, the national anthem of the Holy See, followed by the national anthem of the United States.
By 9:23, the water of life shall proceed forth from the throne of the Lamb, and the day of the Lord shall be...
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Governor Peabody, members of the faculty, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great pleasure to come back to a city where my accent is considered normal. And where they pronounce the words the way they are spelled. I take a special satisfaction in this day as the recipient of an honorary degree in 1956 from Boston College, and therefore an instant alumnus. I am particularly pleased to be with all of you on this most felicitous occasion. This university, or college, as Father Walsh has described, was founded in the darkest days of the Civil War, when this nation was engaged in a climactic struggle to determine whether it would be half slave and half free or all free. And now, 100 years later, after the most intense century, perhaps, in human history, we are faced with the great question of whether this world will be half slave and half free, or whether it will be all one or the other.
War for the Planet of the Apes. A new start, a new leader will emerge. Guess who the leader of the Planet of the Apes is? His name is Caesar. It's picked for a reason. They're just telling you subtle ways all through the movies and media.
And on this occasion, as in 1863, the services of Boston College are still greatly needed. It is good also to participate in this ceremony, which has honored three distinguished citizens of the free world, President Pusey, Father Bunn, and our friend from the world of freedom, Lady Jackson. Boston College is 100 years old by the lifespan of men, but young by that of universities. In this week of observance, you have rightly celebrated the achievements of the past. And equally rightly you have turned, in a series of discussions by outstanding scholars, to the problems of the present and the future. Learned men have been talking here of the knowledge explosion. And in all that they have said, I am sure they have implied the heavy present responsibility of institutions like this one. Yet today I want to say a word on the same theme, to impress upon you as urgently as I can the growing and insistent importance of universities in our national life. I speak of universities because that is what Boston College has long since become. But most of what I say applies to liberal arts colleges as well. My theme is not limited to any one class of universities, public or private, religious or secular. Our national tradition of variety in higher education shows no sign of weakening, and it remains the task of each of our institutions to shape its own role among its differing sisters. In this hope, I am much encouraged by a reading in this last week of the remarkable encyclical Pacem in Terris. In its penetrating analysis of today's great problems of social welfare and human rights, of disarmament and international order and peace, that document surely shows that on the basis of one great faith and its tradition, there can be developed counsel on public affairs that is of value to all men and women of goodwill. As a Catholic, I am proud of it, and as an American, I have learned from it.
The name. Easter Island got its nickname from Jacob Roggeveen. He was one of the first European visitors that was recorded to have been on the island, first making landfall on April 5th of 1722. Now, that date is significant because that was Easter Sunday that year. That's how Jacob chose to describe it, and the nickname has stuck ever since. How the statues were moved. Now, nobody is quite sure how the statues on Easter Island were moved, given that they were transported 11 miles across the island without the use of any kind of wheels, or really any other means of transport that would have been available at the time. There have been several tests that were done by scientists, and most have concluded that if the islanders did use a combination of log rollers, ropes, and sledges, it would be possible. Then, in 2011, Terry Hunt at the University of Hawaii and Carl Lipp from California State University Long Beach would prove, along with National Geographic, that with only 18 people, they could actually move a 10-foot moai replica, one that weighed 5 tons, a few hundred meters, using only ingenuity and 3 ropes that were strong. A theft of an ear. It was in 2008 when a tourist was found on the beach trying to remove an ear from one of the moai. A native islander happened to see a man at the time running from the scene with a piece of the moai in his hand. The islander reported it to police, who were then able to locate the man by the tattoos on his body. He would be placed under arrest and fined about $17,000 US. While this does seem like a lot, his punishment could have actually been much worse, because he was facing 7 years in jail. He issued a public apology with a Chilean newspaper, and as a consequence of his actions, there are now tight controls for tourist access.
40 degrees, 50 yards from impact.
I am officially running for President of the United States.
Islanders toppled statues. Easter Island went through a very rough period where it faced devastation in terms of deforestation. The theory stands that islanders burned trees in order to clear off the land and make canoes to help serve their large population, and also perhaps to transport the moai. In more recent theories, it's been suggested that the deforestation was due to Polynesian rats. These rats are believed to have first come to the island through canoes and ships. The island has its own language. Rongorongo is the official script of Easter Island. It's one of the few known scripts that was created with absolutely no influence from the outside world. Of the wooden tablets and staffs that were found with the Rongorongo carvings, only 26 of those would manage to survive. Even now, scientists have not been able to decipher the meaning of the language, and there were also several wood carvings that were unearthed, one being the Moko Miro, which is a man with the head of a lizard. The Rio Miro, which is a beast with a crescent shape featuring a head at one or both tips, and a few others that were unearthed. But there still doesn't seem to be any resolution as to what they depict and what the carvings are for. The island has a cult. In the 17th and 18th centuries, there were many issues with deforestation and overworking of the land, which depleted the natural resources. With this came many strong religious beliefs, and as a result of the issues that surrounded the land, the Birdman cult would emerge and play a large role in the beliefs that took over as the main religion. The inhabitants of the island ran a competition of sorts, which would help select a new Tangata Manu, or Birdman, every year. The position would entitle the winner to obtain a sacred status and gave them the ability to communicate with gods. Only the chiefs of the many groups on the island were permitted to compete, and they needed to find the first sooty turn egg of the year in order to win, which could be found on the Motu Nui. The chiefs, being the only ones able to win the title, did not personally make the perilous journey in order to get the eggs, which entailed going through shark-infested and turbulent waters. Instead, they would send a representative, also known as a hapu, on a raft made of reeds, called a pora, in order to find the egg for them. The person who was chosen as the representative would find a cave on the island and then wait for the egg to be laid. Once it was, the chief and all of the others would then hold a ceremony and perform ritualistic dances. Whoever would find the first egg would signal across to those on the island, and then based on which representative had found it, a new Birdman would be named. In order to attain the title, the hapu would have to return with the egg intact prior to the winner being officially crowned. The competition declined to exist around the 1860s, and that's when it's believed that Christian missionaries settled on the land. Other contributing factors to the ends of this religion were the islanders being kidnapped by Peruvians in order to do slave work in the mines, along with a breakout of smallpox that dwindled the population drastically down to just 111 people in the year 1877.
The man here was incredibly fast. And the American man here was incredibly fast.
The island has its own currency. Since Easter Island is part of Chile, it does use the currency of Chile, which is a Chilean peso. However, Easter Island also has its own currency as well. In 2008, coins were created, and in 2012, banknotes were made and named Rongo. The name is based off the Rongo language that's found on the island itself. Coins could not be used as ways to purchase things, because they're only meant to be souvenirs. However, the coins did have all of the features of legal tender. They feature the statues, the animals, and the people known for the island, among other notable things. In 2007, the coins were dedicated by Chile, and they featured a 3D effect, allowing the statue to be popped up to look like it was standing. Easter Island's weaponry. There are many native weapons to Easter Island, but they were very limited. Some known weapons were spears that were made out of obsidian, short clubs, and stones that were thrown. While it may not seem like much, they were used by skilled warriors. They could not use arrows because it's been speculated that they were improvised due to the lack of wood on the island. Instead, they would use slings that threw stones and were known to be very precise with their aim. Many of the traditions of the island also describe a net being used, and men were specially trained in order to wield them. It's unknown how they were created or what they actually look like, as the custom is long extinct and current natives don't know how to do it. Other weapons included the use of 2 spears, one which was about 6 feet long that they could throw, and a shorter one which was used for close combat. The spear could also be described as a missile, and it's said to have been thrusted into their enemies. There was also no set class of fighters or army of soldiers, but instead, anyone who was able-bodied was expected to be a warrior and face duty at wartime. No real training program was put into place, and it was said that they learned to throw stones and spears as a form of amusement, often being done at feasts. Clans were led to fight by their chief, but there was no set formation. Instead, those that fought acted on their own accord, or when necessary, on skill and strength. No shields have ever been found, and nothing was ever done to try and protect themselves against those that they fought with. The islanders did acknowledge one king, but due to many issues on the land, they had numerous wars with little relief. Tradition speaks of conflict that came about due to trivial issues, and they would go on through generations. In fact, it's said that they would go through the generations until one of the parties were entirely wiped out. Parties that were extinct would be pursued by the winners to their places of hiding, and then would be destroyed along with their habitat, capturing the women and children along the way. Those who were spared were then to become slaves and tortured, and it was also surprisingly said that when the party who was to be extinguished was captured or knew that they were close to losing, they would not put up a lot of resistance, including the women and children, and the ill, who knew that they were going to be murdered or enslaved, would not fight back. With little strategy in battle, it's always surprising to see how brutal the islanders could be, and how they managed to cause such great destruction with few variations of weapons.
In the beginning was the equation. It was born over 3 centuries ago, when mathematicians said that it described a beautiful curve, the surprising child of distinguished parents, the curve of exponential growth, and its companion curve of exponential decay, by taking equal parts of one and the other. Mathematicians called the curve described by their equation a catenary, because, they said, it was the shape of a hanging chain or a string of beads. And scientists said, if you take that catenary and flip it over, it will make a perfect arch. And along came an architect who said, I have a vision of a magnificent arch that will be light and slender at the top, and will be sturdy and strong at its base, and will last as long as the arches built 2,000 years ago in Rome, and still standing today. And maybe as long as the Great Pyramids, built 3,000 years before that. And the engineer said, yes, we can do that. I will tweak your equation and flatten your catenary, and I will tell you exactly how much to slim it down from bottom to top. And you will have a bright, gleaming arch that will reflect the white, fluffy clouds and the blue sky, and planes will fly over it, and birds will fly around it, and children will frolic. So the architects and engineers took the mathematicians' equations and made drawings and great columns of numbers, and took them to the steel makers and the construction crews, and the dream became a reality, a thing of beauty, and a joy for at least a very, very long time.
was very careful, with Ernie collaborating with me every step of the way, to be able to find the movie narrative inside this dense forest of Ernie's profound imagination.
The Oasis being the ultimate toy box with all the toys in the world, and then playing that with one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. It results in just amazing action and such a fun adventure.
Ernest Cline is such a visionary, and I think has seen the future before any of us possibly could even imagine it.